Hey, what's up, everyone? This is Jeremy, founder of quickmail.io.
And this is Jack, Chief Lead Generation Officer at salesbread.com. Today, we've got a special guest,
Woo.
Perry Marshall. This intro is going to be pretty easy. If you don't know who Perry Marshall is, shame on you. We've mentioned his book, 80/20 Sales and Marketing. How many times, Jeremy, on this podcast?
Oh, gosh, I stopped counting.
Yep, plenty. He wrote the book on Google AdWords, and he's here to talk through 80/20 sales and marketing. We're going to throw in some questions around cold outreach, of course. And without further ado, Perry, thanks for joining us.
It's great to be here. For the listeners, I had Jack speak at my seminar a couple of months ago, and we were talking about if you have to run your internet marketing world without Google ads and without Facebook ads, what do you do? And we got into cold email outreach, and I announced him by saying, well, I got one of the most important contacts in my entire career through a cold email outreach, which was how I got Harvard professor George Church on the judging panel of my $10 million prize. So yeah, I'm cool with cold outreach, and I'm certainly more of a marketing guy than a sales guy. If those of us who've been around and known personalities, like I'm definitely more on the marketing side, but this is totally up my alley, and I'm glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being with us.
All right, we've got a treat for our listeners, that's for sure, myself included. So let's kick things off. I've heard you say that 80/20 is one magic pill that actually works, and I tend to agree. But still, most salespeople, most marketers know about it, but it hasn't changed their life yet. So Perry, help us out. What's the most common thing we're still getting wrong or not grasping with 80/20?
I'm going to guess most people know what I knew about 80/20 before I actually read an 80/20 book, which was, well, I heard about that guy, Vilfredo Pareto, who found out that 20% of the people own 80% of the real estate and 80% of the people own 20% of the real estate. And oh yeah, I found out that my customers are like that too, that 20% of the customers give you 80% of the purchase orders. And then like you just kind of stop there. And what people don't grasp is that because it's a law of nature, like literally a law of nature, and not just this weird little business rule of thumb that you picked up somewhere, it's incredibly predictive. In fact, it's going on all around you 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. And if you can, as soon as you see your entire sales career, your marketing world, your entrepreneur life, and all the numbers and all the spreadsheets and all of the things that go on around you as 80/20 events, or as things that mostly happened because of 80/20, all of a sudden it's like you put on, like when you put on blue blockers and the color of everything is completely different. Or it's like having X-ray goggles to see what makes the world really tick. It explains politics, explains elections, it explains product defects and support tickets. And so it's much more powerful. Like all of a sudden you put on those X-ray glasses. And that's what it was for me. It was a giant epiphany. It was like, oh my goodness, I've missed this my entire life. Now I see it and I can't unsee it.
Is it easy to have that epiphany?
I think it's pretty easy. So I'll give it a try. So about 20 years ago, I was reading Richard Koch's 80/20 book, the 80/20 principle. And I got page 14, and he made this comment. He said, 80/20 has a lot to do with fractals and chaos. Well, I knew what fractals are. A fractal is a pattern inside a pattern inside a pattern. So like if you go, there's a tree across the street, and if I look at the tree like standing right next to it, or if I get a magnifying glass and I looked at the leaf, or even if I get a microscope and look at the leaf, I'm going to see branching patterns, branch all the way up, all the way down. That's what fractal is, okay? And when he said that, I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That means there's got to be an 80-20 inside the 80-20, which means there's another one and another one and another one. Whoa! Wait, so that means if 20% of the people own 80% of the real estate, it also means 20% of that 20% owns 80% of the 80%. And it also means 20 of the 20 of the 20 owns 80 of the 80 of the 80, all the way to Jeff Bezos. Whoa! Nobody ever told me that before. And then I was like, but that is true of customers. That is true of the traffic driving on the road. So like the traffic on the streets of your town, wherever you live, 80% of the cars are on 20% of the roads, but 80% of the 80% of the cars are on 20% of 20% of the roads. So to shortcut it, it means 1% of the roads are carrying 50% of the cars right now, right? So that's also true of billboards, and it's also true of Facebook ads. It's also true of how important your emails are. So go look at your email box right now, whatever the last 100 emails that came in, one of those emails is as important as the other 99 put together. But if it's true, I guarantee you it's true. But until you realize it, you treat every email like it's equal. Well, I got 100 emails and I got 2 hours. So let's see, that's 120 minutes. I got a little over a minute for each email. And then you just mechanically, you go through that. When you realize emails are not equal, customers are not equal, roads are not equal, customer lists are not equal, traffic sources aren't equal, ads are not equal, everything is ridiculously unequal. And it's okay because the universe was built this way. Whoa!
So now I know why Perry doesn't answer my emails, but okay. Oh, fine. No, okay. Jokes aside, Perry, how did when you got this epiphany and this understanding, how did you apply it straight away, and how did that actually? Well, obviously that changed a lot of things, but how did you actually apply it, like concretely?
Well, so here's what happened when I read that and I suddenly got it.
Yeah.
I was in a coffee shop in Oak Park, Illinois. I jump up, I get in my car, I'm like, whoa. So I had been in business for 1.5 years, and everybody who owns a business knows what business is like, less than 2 years in.
Yeah.
It's wobbly. It's like, well, I got this client and I got this project, and then I got all these little plates that I'm spinning. And I thought, so this is true. So yeah, I do have this one client and they're pretty good. And then that means I'm going to have a couple of little itty bitty clients. And then it means like, well, I was giving away a free CD on my website, and I realized that if I took it down, it was like, okay, so how many people have bought anything from you at all? Well, it's more than the number of these little client projects, right? And then how many of these CDs have you given away? And then how many people clicked on the link, but they didn't request the CD? And I was realizing that 80-20 fractal pattern worked its way all the way from the biggest client down, like to the ants, like crawling around on the floor. I'm like, dang. So that means it's always been this way. It's always going to be this way. It gives this whole other dimension to the idea that it's a numbers game. It's like, well, yeah, it's a numbers game, but the numbers that matter like even more than I realize. And then like the people who say yes, then there's the super yeses, and then the super yeses, right? And you really need to spend all your time on these really hot zones of where things are hyper effective, and stop treating everybody equal, like right now, like now.
So I know
it changed everything.
So
sets your business in a certain direction. That's what you mean, right? Yeah.
I feel like every list builder, so if you're doing cold outreach, you need to build a list. You have to think about this because you can easily find yourself with 10,000 rows of prospects. They don't all matter equally. In fact, right? Like 2010, 1% of them are going to make up the overwhelming majority of your sales. So Perry, like getting, like Jeremy said, like concrete, if I'm sort of understanding this epiphany and now the concrete application of 80/20, it means a couple things. So one, you may have spent time during that first year where you had this moment where you're like, it's time to figure out how to take better care of the top customers, which may mean upsells, premium products, etc. It may also mean, let me figure out how to spend less time with the handful of clients that make up the support tickets. So it could mean firing certain clients if they are in that bucket. Yeah. And I suppose that's the obvious one. Maybe when you sit down and say, let's do some marketing, it's going to be for a segment within your list, not everybody. But am I getting mostly that's pretty much what you do when you think 80/20, or you're like, Jack, you're missing something else entirely?
Well, so the best story in the 80/20 book, the one that people tell and retell, is this one. My friend John Mendoza dropped out of high school when he was 17, and he went to Las Vegas, and he literally became a professional gambler. And his mother was literally going to mass, lighting candles every morning, praying that her son would not. And she should have been, because he fell in with a pretty dangerous crowd, honestly. And like maybe a month in, he's like, this is harder than I thought it was going to be. And he went to a bookstore that sold gambling books, and he got into a conversation with this guy who ran a professional gambling ring. Well, would you teach me how to do this? For a percentage of your winnings, I will teach you how to do this. So they shake on it. Jump in the Jeep, John. We're going for a ride. And so jump in the Jeep. They're going down the highway. All right. So how do I win more poker games? And the guy says, the way you play more, the win poker games is you play people who are going to lose. And those people are called marks. You want the kid that just got here from Wichita on his grandmother's inheritance money and thinks he's going to get rich in Las Vegas. And he goes, so where do I find that guy? And he goes, here, I'll show you. And he pulls into the parking lot of a strip club. They walk into a strip club and sit down, and there's women and rock and roll and people drinking and everything going on in there. And the guy pulls out a shotgun, a sawed-off shotgun, which he carried everywhere he went. And he opened the chamber under the table and he slammed it shut, and it goes in the middle of this noisy club. And there's these biker guys over in the corner, and they're like, hey, who did that? And the owner comes over to the table and says, what's going on here? It's okay. We're just teaching the lad a lesson, not causing any trouble. Hey, John, did you see those guys turn around when they heard that noise? He's like, yes. Don't play poker with them because they're not marks. Play poker with everybody else. And that is what we call racking the shotgun, which everything you do in sales is racking a shotgun, right? You send the email, they open it or they don't. They reply or they don't. They click on the link or they don't. They spend the money or they don't. They come on the webinar or they don't. This is going on all the time. So let's talk about selecting lists. So you hired people on Fiverr or whatever you did, and you came up with this list of 10,000 people. Well, so look at your list and ask yourself the question, what shotgun already got racked where I could figure out they turned their head that would push some people to the top and other people to the bottom. So in direct marketing, they call this a compiled list versus a response list. A compiled list is all the people in zip code 60402, and a response list is people who subscribed to Harper's Magazine, or people who went to a trade show, or people who donated more than $125 to a charity, or bought a piece of industrial equipment. You are looking for, and look, so you're compiling a list. Of course, it's easy. Oh, go get me the name, get me the address, get me the email, get me the website. How about, I want evidence that this person ever went to a trade show, or I want evidence that this person participates in a local accounting meetup group, or I want, like, I am looking for signs that this person, a shotgun got racked somewhere and they turned their head. Like, what was that? This is always, and what it almost always, it's almost always 20% and 80%. Now, it's not the numbers 20 and 80 that so much matter. It could be 90-10 or 95-5, but the point is a minority of people respond, a majority of people do not. And within the minority, it's 80-20 squared, it's 80-20 cubed, because, okay, who turns their heads when they rack a shotgun? Now we are in the realm of people who pay attention to shotguns. Now, if you go to a shotgun meeting, okay, you're gonna see people that this is their first one. And you're going to see people who own 10,000 rounds of shotgun shells in their cabin in Wyoming, and like they're ready for the commies to show up. If you're selling shotgun shells, you're looking for that guy, not the new guy.
Absolutely.
And it's ridiculously unequal.
And as I was always like a little bit, I don't know what's the right word, envious of certain forms of direct marketing, because I don't know, I could imagine if we're going back 30 years or even now, right? You can buy these response lists and send mailers based on people's purchase habits. And as a cold emailer, as like cold outreach, I wish I could figure out, or I should correctly say, it is my job to figure out who is most likely to have done stuff like that in the past and about to do stuff like this in the future for my clients. So I'm kind of this like obsessive person in a basement trying to think, okay, well, now we're selling recruiting services, or we're selling graphic design. Which business owners? Okay, so now there's 50,000 business owners. Now, which of them don't care at all about graphic design? It's the ones that haven't updated their website in 3 years. Okay, so they're gone. Now we're left with, let's say 30% of the list. Okay, now which one has a graphic designer on payroll? All right, they probably don't need us. And now, you know, what I'm getting at is, yeah, we don't have response lists. That sounds cool, but in cold email, those are hard to come by. But I liked what you said, that could just mean they went to a trade show and paid money for an ad. You can buy that list. That could just mean they already pay for this technology on their website. That's a response list. And a good, let's say, cold emailer will be able to distill, all right, what are we selling and what can we see? What visible signals are out there that I can use to rack the proverbial shotgun? It's hard, it's creative, it's fun, but it always leads to more profitable campaigns.
Well, so notice that we're looking for something someone did, which gives us something to talk to them about. I noticed that you did this. Okay, so I just thought of this. My prize judge, George Church, who is, I got to him through a cold email, and he's literally the most influential living geneticist. Like his student won the Nobel Prize 2 years ago. Okay, he's that influential. I found out that he had been in the running for a genetics breakthrough prize that had gotten canceled. Like they'd put out money for a technology prize, and then they had shut down the contest midway through the contest after his lab had spent a bunch of money on it. And I was now putting together a technology prize. So 1 or 2 emails in, it wasn't the first email, but it was like, hey, you know, I saw that you were involved in this thing and it got canceled, and there was a thing on your blog about you were disappointed, and you wrote to the guy, and he's like, oh yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, if I'm talking to him about something that he did, and we're talking about a very rare and unusual activity. Like, how many people do you know who have tried to win a technology prize and like not got the money, but like so they have evidence, right? But see, a version of this happens all over the place. Well, I tried to hire a graphic designer, and 3 of them quit on me. So if you're selling graphic design, like,
right.
Well, I saw that you had 3 graphic designers in 2 months. That must have been fun. Yeah. They're like, oh yeah, that was lots of fun. Right?
I love
and
that.
That's a completely different conversation than, hello, my name is Ricky, and I have a team of graphical designers who design brochures and websites.
That's right. That's right. And it works the other way too, Perry. Is like if you're not careful about your list and you're sending that to too many people, your sender reputation goes down. So it's even harder to inbox, and it's this death spiral that happens if you're not careful. Now, Jeremy, I want to veer us a little bit towards writing emails, but before I do that, we're still on list, fracking the shotgun. Anything you want to approach?
I wanted to actually ask you, you've been running quite a few campaigns by now, obviously, Jack. How did you think that works to actually mention, like you're doing something that is obviously easy sort of like to find?
It doesn't matter, because what the important thing is, you're using that as a signal to gather the right people in the room. And then
that I get.
You can shortcut a lot of. You're asking if that
email,
tactic still works.
Exactly. Because in the cold email, when someone told me like, "Hey, I've seen your job ads for Ruby developer," for example, I'm like, okay, well,
okay. So think about this. For like recruiting, it's played out, and you have to be careful because look, I mean, everybody knows that you shouldn't sound like a cold email, right? And Perry, I hope I'm right. When you write an advertisement, an ad somewhere, it should be talking to that person. It shouldn't look like this is for everyone, right? So anytime that an email opens where it smells kind of automated, we have to be careful. But like, think about something else. It's like, let's say I just fired my 3rd graphic designer. I can't find an agency that's going to help me out for whatever reason. Let's say I'm skeptical of the whole thing now, and I get an email that starts off with, "I noticed you let go your 3rd designer this week, but let me do you a solid and I'm going to mock up the next 2 designs you want on the house. I want you to be wildly impressed. Should we talk about it?" Even if it does open like something that's happened before, I still think you're talking to the right person, and the offer is going to resonate. And
I have been following your blog for a long time, so that you let go your 3rd designer and so on. So yes, and wanted to help you because I like your company. That obviously works very well, but obviously requires a lot of personalization.
Yeah, Perry, let me ask you, does it work the same with Facebook ads or Google ads? I mean, do you have to stay away from stuff that's been played out?
Well, you never want to be saying the same thing everybody else is saying. Like, otherwise, then there's no reason to say it. Right? So you're always looking for, what can I say that nobody else can say?
That's your USP, right?
Or would say. Now, like with cold email, I try to say things that no spammer would ever say. So, for example, I don't remember if we even talked about this or not, but 20 years ago, I kind of accidentally invented a cold email where I rented, and so this was 1,500 people. I rented a list from a magazine called Censors Magazine. They didn't give me the list, they would just mail for me. And I gave him an email, and I think the subject line was rotary encoder sensor white paper. Okay. And
I'm following you.
like, my tech guys have written an application guide for rotary encoders, and if you reply back, I'll send it to you in PDF. And I wrote this for a client, and he sent it out to 1,500 people. He got an 8% response.
It's great. Yeah.
So 8% of 1,500, whatever.
Kind of your
like
whacking the
120
shotgun kind of example.
Yeah, 100 people replied back and said, send me the PDF.
That's killer.
Well, my observation was no spammer on earth would write a spam about rotary encoders. Right?
It's too specific. Yeah.
And so a huge key, I don't care if you're Facebook ads or a cold email or a cold call for that matter, is extreme specificity.
Yeah.
If you are saying something to them that no normal spammer would ever say, because it's so fine, so granular, so specific, then and using lingo that only a tiny tribe of people in the world would ever use. Yeah. So again, back to my prize, I'm emailing a geneticist about a prize for the discovery of the origin of the genetic code. No spammer is going to send him a message about that.
Receive one every day, literally. No, I'm kidding.
No, but it's different than jargon, meaning the folks that you say this to get it, and you're now on the in crowd. You're talking like them.
Yes. And the word jargon is an interesting one, because the connotation of the word jargon is people who use those kind of words and don't know what they're talking about.
That's right.
Or they just throw them around so they sound like they know what they're talking about. When you use jargon and you use it absolutely correctly, and you use it the exact same way that maybe there's only 250 people in the entire world that would ever have that conversation, you're an insider, not an outsider, even when they don't want you to be an insider. Because that's the rules of conversation. Oh, that guy's an outsider. He has no idea what we're talking about. And then you talk about the hypendithral phase inverted, or you talk about the flux density of their strontium cobalt magnets
every day.
Like, well, this guy obviously knows what you guys are talking about. So if you're going to say he's an outsider, I guess it's not ringing true to me.
Yeah. Yeah. There's a few tools in our belt that we can use to get a little bit closer to a cold prospect. Like you mentioned, using their language. Another one that we use to get John Carlton on the show, as we mentioned, that someone they trust also joined us. So James Schramko. So it's like, I'm thinking about this engineer cold email. You could be like, hey, we're helping XYZ firm that's known in this really small thing. Like we even did a campaign around like a video game design technology. And we mentioned like the guy who made a really popular game, a 4-letter game that I won't say. And we're like, hey, John blah said this about our tool. Should we talk? And it was like, oh yeah, let's go. Now we're talking a little bit more about writing these messages. And I'm just curious, because a cold email, cold message, we got 3 sentences, 4, maybe 5 if we're really, really onto something. Do you have any tips for taking a sales page and boiling that down into like the 20% selling points that really matter, that really carry their weight?
Well, so first there's the basic truth. Like 80-20 is something that you have to have a little bit of faith in until you verify for yourself that it's really true. Yeah. So 80-20 says that if you have a 1,000 word landing page, that 50% of what that page is saying can be expressed in 1% of the words. So what's 1% of 1,000? It's 10. 80-20 says you should be able to convey 50% of the meaning of a 1,000-word page in 10 words. In fact, it virtually guarantees you that you can, and that if you haven't, it's because you haven't tried hard enough.
So, and we got that number, just 1% times word count.
Yeah, which it's 80-20 cubed.
That's cool.
If I take 80-20 and I run it 3 times, I get 10% from 50%.
So what do you think about this, Perry? Like when I onboard a new client, I have to really quickly figure that out, or I don't get paid, right? So a lot of times I'll say, can you send me your slide deck, that when you get someone to do a demo with you, what do you share with them? Not everybody has this, but if they do, I want my hands on it. So let's say there's 100 slides. Are we saying, again, maybe 1 slide is the heavy hitter?
Yes, more than likely, 1 slide says as much as the other 49 put together.
Okay, and Jeremy, I want you to weigh in here, but I have one more like add on here. So Perry, let me get your reaction to this, because I think I have a question that will show me what that slide is pretty quickly. I ask, when you're in a meeting, doing your demo, going through your slides, where does the light bulb turn on for the person on the other side of the screen? And a lot of times they're like, oh yeah, people are really surprised when we find out X, and it does lead to some cool stuff. Would you modify that question? Do you like it? Do you not like it? What would you say to that?
So I have a different version of this that I'll just throw out. So my favorite way to get to the essence of somebody's unique selling proposition is the following formula: if, then else. And the goal is for me to be the only person on earth that can say that, because it's that unique. So here's the structure. The first if is, you have to be, if you are the right kind of person for me to even do business with in the first place, which means you're a 36-year-old soccer mom, or you're a geneticist at Harvard, or you're a plumber who does 50 jobs a week. Okay, first if, you got to be the right kind of person. Second if, you have to cooperate with my process. Like, if you live in Oak Park, Illinois, and your toilet is overflowing, and your basement is leaking, right? Then the next if, and if you let our guys in your house and let them take these soil measurements and take the drywall off of your cement wall so they can see what's going on, like, you have to cooperate somehow.
Yep.
Then your basement will be waterproof from now on, like no flood, or else, skin in the game, something painful or expensive will happen to me, the service provider. And so if something painful is going to happen to you if their basement ever leaks, then that puts all of the spotlight on the first and second if. You have to be the right person. Like, there might be some, well, if you live in this floodplain, let's say, like, we can't help you, sorry, right? It could be something like that. And then the second if is, well, if you negotiated with us and the price is down and we cut out this step and we do a half-assed job, no, we're not going to guarantee anything, right? And so the if then else, when you've dialed in, I'm the only basement waterproofer in the western suburbs who will make this guarantee because I have these 2 ifs dialed in so well, then you can do risk reversal that nobody else can, and you can charge a higher price than anybody else. And then it goes all the way back to your cold email. It's like, we can guarantee you that even in this floodplain, you will never have your basement leak. Or I can explain more if you want to hear more.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm liking it. There's a lot of good nuggets of knowledge. Since you wrote the book 80/20, did you have any other epiphany or any?
Well, one of the things that I included in the book is something called the marketing DNA test. And this was the result of, so as a marketing and sales consultant, I have worked with every kind of marketing and salesperson you could possibly imagine. So, and I have seen people try on and like close all these different sales personalities and marketing things. And people go to seminars and they're like, oh my goodness, I have to be a copywriter. I got to be a copywriter. I got to learn how to write copy, right? And then a copywriter could go to a seminar and he could come home and go, I have to learn to negotiate. Man, if I know negotiate. And and somebody else is like, I got to learn how to do videos. Man, I got to go do YouTube videos now. And somebody else comes home and they go, I've got to do live webinars. And somebody else goes, I've got to do video sales letters.
It only lasts 2 weeks, don't worry.
And then it lasts 2 weeks. So having watched people do this, and most of the time it's very uncomfortable and they look stupid and they sound terrible. And all, I realized that what Jack should do to be successful in marketing and what Perry should do or what Jeremy should do are completely different things. And there's some things that Jack should never do. There's some things that Perry should never do. How do you figure out what they are? And so I spent quite a few months, and and then we tested for months, and we came up with this thing called a marketing DNA test. And so here's an example, actual example. So there's a kind of person that I call a hostage negotiator. And they are usually extremely quick on their feet. They engage with people live with just incredible speed, and they connect to their emotions and everything. And like, these are the proverbial could sell ice to Eskimo kind of people, right? We've all seen salespeople that are like that. And they get the hostages out of Iran or what, and then like
Jordan Belfort
is over, and you go, so what did you say? And he doesn't even know. He doesn't even remember what he said. Okay, this is an avatar of a kind of salesperson that I've met a whole bunch of these. Right now, here's a different one. Introvert, copywriter. He'll spend months writing sales letters and stuff. He'll plan like this product launch for 4 months or something, and then finally on the appointed day, press send. Like, all of this stuff just happens, and the shopping carts are moving dollars. Now, these are the hostage negotiator and the hide in the cave copywriting guy, completely, totally different people. And if the copywriter tries to be a hostage negotiator,
He'll be dead.
He'll get mowed down with a machine gun, right?
We're all dead, yeah.
And then, and then the hostage negotiator tries to write a newsletter, and he can't even remember to put anything in the subject line of the email because his brain runs so fast. And I'm like, I've got to categorize all these people and tell them all who they are. And so we developed this tool, and there's a free link inside the book. And you take this thing. I've had people take that thing and go, I am going to stop trying to make videos, and I'm going to be a copywriter because that's what this says I am. I've had other people say, I'm going to own the fact that I am a hostage negotiator. I'm going to go negotiate hostages, and I'm going to stop killing myself trying to write these newsletters, which are torture, right? And I want everybody to take the
Yeah.
Marketing DNA test and print that thing out, like put it on your wall, and like never do the stuff that it tells you to never do.
Yeah, that would be social media management for me. Whatever avatar that would not be is me right here. So you're listening, Perry. If I'm not mistaken, you go to sell8020.com. You could pay $7 including shipping, and you get the book 80/20 Sales and Marketing, and then you get access to the tools. Is that right?
Yes, yes.
Okay.
And some extra videos
Do
you
it,
don't
please.
get if you bought it on Amazon. And
Okay.
this will totally change your life. I've got clients that read it every year, once a year, like clockwork, because it's such a radical change in thinking from normal sales.
Yeah, I definitely back the book. Jeremy and we've spoken about this at length. So if you're listening, I'm sure you know 80/20. You probably have a copy, but if you don't, I guess it's your lucky day, because get on the wagon. Now, gents, we have about 5 more minutes of discussion. There's a few different areas we can take it, but I'm curious, Jeremy or Perry, do we want to steer it a particular way?
Well, I've got something that I think will be useful to every single person. And it's called the 5 Power Disqualifiers. And they are the 5 things that are always true every time anybody buys anything from anybody. And John Mendoza, the kid who became the professional gambler, came up with this. And before I explain what these are, I want to explain a complete reversal, a complete shift from normal sales thinking. Sales and marketing is not a convincing people process. It is a disqualification process. Because 80/20 says 80% of the people that you might try to sell something to, you shouldn't even talk to them in the first place. Okay, 80/20 starts with what you don't do, and it starts with what's not going to happen before it focuses on what's going to happen. Okay, and if you can make this reversal, then you're not chasing people anymore. Like, you take a sales job or you get a product or whatever, and your natural lizard brain wants to go, this is the most wonderful thing, it's for everybody. The first thing you have to do is go, so what 99% of people in the world is this actually not for? And you figure all that out. And so here's the rules, these 5 things. Do they have the money? If they don't have the money, your product is not for them. Period. Leave. Stop talking, stop presenting, stop persuading, stop convincing, leave. They don't have their money, they're not buying it. Okay?
Yeah.
Number 2.
Which, Perry, I can't believe I'm interrupting Perry Marshall, but in practice, I use this. I used to hide like pricing. I used to, I'll talk to everybody and I'll get them there. I'll get them there. But
it's just like
no,
very
but
shy about saying it.
Since reading N20, you're wondering like what actually changes with this insight. It's like, I'm either going to, I do one of 2 things. I mention it very clearly before you talk to me. And it's the first thing that I go to. Maybe this is stupid, but it's the first thing I go to on a sales call. It's like, look, we're not for everyone. Boom. I go into the bad. And it's like, it's so nice because the folks that are on the line know the drill and they all, and it just, things get easier. So, okay, that's my aside. Please. What number 2?
We're not for everyone. Our cheapest tuxedo is $3,500.
Love it.
Okay. You immediately ended the conversation. If they go, oh, no, then they leave and you leave and go have coffee with somebody else.
Bless your heart.
Do they have the money?
Yeah.
Do they have a bleeding neck? People who do not have a source of pain will not have urgency to buy anything. When people part with their money, it's because they're unhappy or uncomfortable with something, and preferably terribly unhappy and terribly uncomfortable. And you can't be squeamish about it. The fact is that people are they're gonna write you a check for that graphic designer because they're in pain and their project is late, and they fired 3 graphic designers last week,
Yeah.
and they're desperate, right? Okay,
But,
number 3.
but Perry, what about that like tuxedo? I mean, I look, granted, there's a lot of applications that I see this like 100%, let's do it. But then I'm like, well, luxury goods, is that an outlier? Is this something like, for the most part, how do you?
So to cover all situations, all of us, every one of us, everybody listening to your show, Jeremy, Jack, Perry, all of us sell one of 2 things: pain relief or endorphin rushes. Okay.
Fair
And
point, yeah.
and not having an endorphin rush when you want one is painful. Okay.
Yep.
So
Yep.
not having a suit, not having a tuxedo when you need a
Not
tuxedo,
looking the best at the event, right?
that's painful.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
And
All right. Fair point.
we have to stop being squeamish. We are all dealing with people who are in pain, and it doesn't make you bad, you know, like
this is a very fair comment, but it's very difficult in cold email usually to get that. You can do, your research, get your list as good as possible, but sometimes it's difficult to figure out, like, are they really bleeding, or is it just like an annoyance of something that is not? No, you disagree?
Maybe,
with that?
Jeremy. Well, I'm thinking like maybe this is okay. You build your list as best possible. If you can find a bleeding neck, do it. Now you've got your list. When you write, you may want to address this pain point slightly. You don't want to be over salesy, but it's there, and let's not ignore it, perhaps.
Yeah. Well, maybe it's at the prospecting side, but it's not always easy to figure it out, and that's when it becomes difficult. But you're right. This is a very important point.
We can all agree that we can't do it all in one email, but you just got to know as a universal principle that whether it's before you got them on your list, or in the email, or shortly thereafter, you're going to have to figure out whether
they're going to have to address it 100%.
Right? And if they're not in pain, they're not going to buy. Third, they buy into your unique selling proposition, which is what we were talking about, if then else. Like, what is this thing that only you do, right? Okay, 4th one, ability to say yes. Now, what that's about is most people that you try to sell to have the ability to say no, but they do not have the ability to say yes. They don't have the authority. Like, you could talk to the husband about the remodel, but until the wife shows up, there's not going to be a remodel, right? You could talk to the engineer about the project, but until the engineering manager or the purchasing agent or the president or somebody else is in the room, you're not going to actually get a yes. And you have to recognize that right away. Am I talking to a person that can only say no and they're a gatekeeper, or am I talking to the actual yes person? And then 5th, does it fit their overall plans? Now, if you write these 5 things on a 3x5 card and stick them up on your wall, and before you hire guys on Fiverr to build you a list, or before you email anybody, or before you call anybody, or go out and do sales calls or whatever, if you know, I'm trying to knock off any of these 5 things before I actually engage with people, your value just went up because you're not feeling like a whore.
Yeah, right. Well said. I think that's hopefully gonna help our listeners with both the list and writing stuff to their prospects here.
That's why it's applicable to both, right? Mm-hmm.
Jeremy, anything else on your side? Questions or add-ons there?
You're always throwing things at me. I don't always know.
No,
here I don't have anything. I'm just enjoying the conversation right now.
Yeah, and me, I'm just worried. I'm like being like too excited. So when I'm excited, I talk. All right. I think we need to ask our book question that we ask every guest.
Actually, I do
Perry,
have one thing. I'm sorry, I'm just jumping back. Do you actually apply all those 5 disqualifiers, Jack, in your cold outreach, or do you think like some are more for the prospecting, some are more for?
It's hard.
Cold email?
It's hard, right? So let's address: do they have the ability to say yes? A lot of companies are different. So it could be VP engineering or CTO or head of development that's going to actually say yes. You don't always know who's the yes. you try and aim higher in the organization, but
So maybe it's
that's
discovered at the demo part, right? Just making sure when jumping
yeah,
on demo.
right, like getting your foot in the door. If the cold email
Mm-mm.
or cold outreach does that for you, great. Then job done for the cold email. Now it's up to you to carry on with that call. Now, do they have the budget? That's a little bit easier. You can see, though revenue is not as accurate as we all want it to be, you can kind of see
Company
which
size.
companies have money,
Yeah.
right? Bleeding neck, we've addressed this. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. You do your best, or mention the copy. What's kind of cool, Perry, like maybe you can just, I don't know, thumbs up to this or not, but sometimes when okay, right. So I used to run this campaign that was selling something for companies that use Salesforce, and I'll just say it's Slack. Okay. Now Salesforce is publicly available. Slack, you can't really know. I've tried, like, I'm not kidding when a lot of my work is like, how do you identify? You can do hacky things like go to slack.com/ or maybe it was like
Yeah, and it will tell you yeah.
ibm.slack.com, and then it pulls up like IBM's enterprise page where you log in. And so you kind of can do clever, like hacky things, which is the fun part of like building lists, honestly. But what we decided, we're like, all right, we're gonna say this. The majority of companies that use Slack are like techie, startup-y companies. So that's our guess. And we had data to back that up. We're like, all right, let's look at who paid you money. They use Salesforce and Slack. Oh, and they were a funded startup. Great. Well, not every startup uses Slack, but a lot of them do. So we're going to use our best guess there. But then in the message, do they have the bleeding neck? We just pretty much said, I know, like, if using Slack with your Salesforce integration, so if they weren't going to read that the rest of the message, they're done. And if they were, it was a little bit interesting. So you can kind of use the copy to figure, to almost filter your list, which is fun.
Well, it's for your reply rate, right? You basically, yeah, use that for, are they going to reply or not?
Right. And then what was, try not to talk to gatekeepers. A lot, Jeremy, a lot, but like maybe one day we'll live in a world where all this data is there if you just pay enough for it. And I don't know if that's a good or bad world, but as of now, you kind of got to get creative.
So water cooler. Then we have USP and fit their overall plan. Now the last one is very difficult. Can you give me an example, Perry, for the fit their overall plan?
Well, if I'm selling a kitchen remodel and this couple is moving to Seattle in 3 months, there ain't going to be no kitchen remodel, right? Like,
makes sense.
It's the last on the list for a reason. But if
so they find something else to solve their problem, so they have that bleeding neck problem, like their kitchen is rubbish, whatever, but they find a different solution so it doesn't fit their plan. Is that what you're hinting towards?
Yeah, it's like you have to be congruent with where they're going and what they're doing in general.
Yeah.
Like if there's some fundamental conflict,
right?
Let
me try something.
Oh, go ahead.
Zoom lag, man. Blaming on Zoom.
The king of interrupting, Perry. Perry, I was just gonna like, what about this? Let's say you're offering podcast editing service. If you built a list of people that don't podcast, forget it. They don't have that end goal. That's not where they're going. Is that kind of it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. And so, yeah, if they're doing something in the next 6 months, it's a complete change away from what you're doing, right? As opposed to 6 months from now, this is exactly where they're headed, and you should be talking to them about Salesforce or Slack or whatever, right? So it's the last one on the list, but it's important because it's just the context. You know, the gatekeeper thing, the most important thing is just to know, well, who's the first person up the line that can actually say yes? That's one of the first things that you got to figure out. And it's one of I biffed this one terribly when I was a young sales guy. I was afraid to ask. I didn't know how these companies worked. I thought the engineer that I was talking to would ram it through management. No, they won't. Right? That's your job, right? And so I was afraid to even ask. Like, well, are you the person that is able to decide about these things, or do you need to ask somebody? And yeah, I know that's an uncomfortable question. Well, they're all uncomfortable questions. They're all rack the shotguns is what they are. And it takes balls to rack a shotgun.
Yeah.
May get shut.
It's true. You know, I've asked a few questions like this on surveys or like even forms to book a call. Do you prefer, and then we're at time here, but do you prefer doing this like on the phone, or are you fine letting the survey qualify?
Oh, well, so I'm more of a marketing guy than a sales guy. And I, by nature, will try to find a way to get people to do it online or whatever. But the truth is any means of gathering this information is game, right? If you can research it before you ever talk to anybody, great. If you ask them in person, great. If they'll tell you in a survey, great. But these are the 5 things that you're gonna end up finding out before you ever get a dollar from anybody.
Smart.
All right, so if we come back to before I derailed this conversation, you were about to ask
That's
for
right.
books.
Yeah, we're starting to wrap up here. We've got one book recommendation question, and then we're gonna sign off here. So Perry, by the way, thank you. This has been a lot of fun, and
awesome.
I think our listeners would say the same. Really a pleasure to have you on the cast. Now, you've got 80/20 sales and marketing. You've got your AdWords book. I mean, a lot of great books have come from you. So we're curious, what else are you recommending to other marketers, other sales professionals out there right now? And by all means, I want everyone to read your books as well, but is there something else that you encourage folks to take a look at?
So I think one of the most underrated books is The Star Principle by Richard Koch. Koch. And he wrote the 80/20 book that gave me the epiphany 20 years ago. And he's brilliant. I think he's one of the most underrated authors.
Cool.
And Star Principle is about, are you even in the right business in the first place? And, or, you know, if you could adjust your product offering or your business offering to where you're really in the sweet spot, what is it? It's absolutely brilliant book.
Thanks. Yeah.
I wrote it down.
Yeah, we'll have to check it out. And okay, so you're listening, you're going to go to sell8020.com. That's where you can, for $7, get the 80/20 sales and marketing book plus, and this is kind of the big thing, is like the bonus tools, like the marketing DNA, the cheat sheet. They're just going to supplement all the stuff that we've talked about, hopefully. So I can't imagine an easier ROI than to spend $7 plus shipping on this. Seriously, do it. And if you love it, send us an email, podcast@quickmail.io. Tell us thanks. I'm sure you'll want to. That's it. That's it for me. I had a blast. Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Barry, for joining us. That was awesome.
It was great to have you, and it's been great meeting you. Somebody introduced me to you a few months ago, and it's been fun getting to know both of you. So thank you.
Oh, cool.
Likewise.
All right, we'll be in touch. Thank you, Barry.
All right.